Truth in Advertising. They wrote, or I got a message on the plane. I'm coming straight from the airport. Our flight was delayed by 6 hours. And I didn't stop off yet in my Ichsania, but I didn't want to miss today's share. It was scheduled for 12:30, and I called them to tell them that we're mid-air. Then I got a message that I'm supposed to be speaking about, and that's what the sign said, the Ben Torah in the workplace. Somebody else had told me that my share was on Taisvis Shabbos and Taisvis Yantiv. So I'm going to try to figure out how we're going to not make anyone have falsely advertised and try to do both. But let's start with the topic that was that's on the sign. It's a very, very important topic, and in many ways this topic is a tribute to the generation that we live in. Rabbi Lapiansky, Zolzain Gesundenstark, has written a marvelous work on this topic, and everybody who talks about the topic should recommend the book, which I do. But just a few thoughts that I wanted to share that maybe are not included in the book, or a different perspective on a few of these items. I'd like to start first with a Dvar Torah on the topic. The Mishnah says, "Asay melachtecha aray, asay Torascha keva." The Vilna Gaon in his Girsa on the Mishnah, uniquely, we don't have that Girsa, says, "Asay Torascha keva umelachtecha aray." Now, we have to stop for a moment. Without getting into the sources of the text, but just let's understand the necessity of the predicate. Why do we need to say Asay Malachtecha Aray after you said Asay Torascha Keva? It's an automatic. If your Torah is Keva, so everything else is Aray. Keva means firmly established and central, and Aray means subordinate, secondary. Why would you have to say it after you establish what was primary? So I think that we could understand it based on a different halacha. The halacha, the Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah, Kol shivas yamim adam oise sukkasoi keva ubeisoi aray. All 7 days, you establish your sukkah as your main domicile. This is where you live, and your house should be temporary, but permanence you should give to your sukkah. Once again, could we ask the question, what's the necessity to speak about the house? But here it's a more lumdish question. Let's ask the question lumdish. A sukkah has dinim. A house has no dinim on sukkahs. There's no mitzvah, there's no halachas about your house. The only halacha you have about your house is that you have to have a mezuzah in your house, which has nothing to do with sukkahs. What do you mean there's a halacha what to do with your house in sukkahs? So I once came across a Pri Megadim in Shulchan Aruch, where the Pri Megadim has a remarkable minig, which he doesn't subscribe to, but he cites this minig. The minig used to be that one would remove the tablecloth from his dining room table on Sukkot. You couldn't have your table set on Sukkot in your house. And everything was set in the Sukkah. We all understand the idea behind it, but it was a real minig. Now, what's the idea? What does this minig want to teach us? I don't have the Gemara in front of me, But the Gemara in Sukkah Daf Chav Ches has a Rashi, and the Rambam on that Mishnah in Perish HaMishnayos, they both say the same Yisoid. A person can only have one home, one site as his kriyus. I know people say, and people feel that they have two homes or three homes, and part of the year I live here, and part of the year I live there. But conceptually, a person has one place as an ikka, or he has no place, like someone who floats around hotels. An ikka, by definition, means it's my main spot. And Rashi points that out, and the Rambam points it out, and the Rambam adds that you should make your house on Sukkot like a beis shimush, a garage. It services your house. So the idea that some people have, which by the way adheres to the halacha but not to the spirit of the halacha. I sit in my house all day on Sukkot, but when I want to eat something, I jump into the sukkah. What you're doing is you're saving yourself from not eating chutz l'sukkah. But you're not living in the sukkah. The idea is to live in the sukkah as much as you can. And that gives it a permanence. So what happens to your house? We know for certain halachas, chiv mezuzah and other things, when you move into a house, at what point did I move? People move slowly. But when you set yourself up that you are able to sleep in the new home and eat there, you've set it up, that's called moving. Now, the sukkah, also the Gemara says that Kol Shivas Yamim, how Ketzad, the Gemara asks, how do you live in the sukkah? Oichel v'shoiso, metayel. You make it your main domicile. Now, people go to work on Chalamayid. People go to shul. We don't daven in the sukkah. The Shilti Gabayim explains because Kidei L'chaven as Liboy, it's better to daven in shul than in the sukkah. So we daven in shul. We learn maybe in shul. People take walks. It could be he doesn't spend so much time in the sukkah. So how do I know he moved into the sukkah? I know how he moved into the sukkah by how he treats his house. If he didn't treat his house as his main domicile, then I know that he made his sukkah keva. He doesn't have to be there all day, but it has to be the place that he comes home to eat, to sleep, and he doesn't go somewhere else to be metayel. Of course, you can walk into your house, and of course, if it's raining, and all those other inyanim, but you have to create a keva. And I'll only know if it's keva by how arai your house is. Let's take these two words of keva and arai that exist for the sukkah, and now let's apply them to the Vilna Gaon in the Mishnah in Avos. Asay Torascha keva. So the Vilna Gaon, if I may try to creep into his thinking, and say, the Gaon says, how do I know that your Torah is keva? So if you're a koil younger man, and you're learning 12 hours a day, and you have no other occupation, and Torah soyum nasai, so of course I know it's keva. But what about for most of Klal Yisrael? That is called koivei itim l'Torah. How do I know when you're koivei itim l'Torah that your learning is your kviyas, and not just arai? I chapashir. How do I know? I'll only know by how arai your malacha is. If your malacha is arai to your learning, then I know your learning is keva. Again, arai being temporary, and keva meaning permanent. Now, that's not ours necessarily. Some of us, we know that we schedule our lives. Many of us schedule our flights around minyanim. I have two people in mind who, no matter where they are, they do a lot of business in the United States and fly from city to city. That's their business. But they will constantly check where they can get 3 minyanim a day. So that, if, for example, His business meeting is outside of Detroit, but he's going to have another flight to Detroit, so he could daven in Detroit and go back to the meeting. That means he made his davening his kfiyas. He schedules around his davening. There are people who schedule their work hours and their job around the ability that I could have a seder in the morning, a seder in the evening. It could be a daf yomi, whatever it is. You might be working longer than you're learning, but your learning is subordinate to your work because you scheduled yourself around it. And the Vilna Gaon is telling us that in Asay Malachtecha Keva. How do I know? Asay Toirascha Keva. How do I know? Because Malachtecha is Arai. It's subordinate. If you won't be able to have a matzav ever to learn or send your children to the proper schools, you won't take that job. That makes it Arai. So as an introduction to some of the more practical ideas, I think that this Vilna Gaon sets the tone for us. Asay Toirascha Keva Malachtecha Arai. And while you're at your malacha, you will remember that this malacha is arai to the keva of the Torah, which already sets you on a different path than a person who did not take this priority. I once heard, as a bacha, from the great Rabbi Yosef Broya, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, the famed Rav Broya of the Broyas Kehillah, whose mother was a daughter of Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch. So he had a pure Messiah. He told me that he finds more challenges in the workplace as a Rav than even in a university. He was talking about students versus people who are employed. Please remember this meeting was in 1978. I wouldn't necessarily say the same thing today, or I don't know, I can't speak for him, but I don't think he would say the same thing today either. The universities have recently revealed themselves to be what they are. But the idea of stepping into the workplace has its great challenges. Now the Nisyonos run the gamut through Orach Chaim, Yeridea, Even Ezer, and Choshen Mishpat. Everybody understands Choshen Mishpat because you're dealing with money. So I don't even have to explain that. Honesty, integrity, fair dealing, Choshen Mishpat. Even Ezer, I don't think I have to explain much either. People come in contact with people for which they have to know the proper boundaries and barriers and their behaviors. I think that's self-evident. Yeridea, well, Hilchas Tzedakah is one tangential issue, but there are many inyanim that have to do with kashrus and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do that are very subtle, that one would want to have a good Rav to consult with. And Orach Chaim is our scheduling of life. Davening is affected by what our job happens to be in meetings. Yamim Tovim, Shabbos-related matters. We own businesses that are open on Shabbos, which is a very challenging topic, and how to deal with that, and so on and so forth. So every area of Shulchan Aruch is affected. The poskim say on a shaila that's raised. We all made brachas. It's not a shaila for this island because you're learning all day. But many people make birchas Torah early in the morning. If they wouldn't say Yivarechacha and a few psukim, they would have done nothing for the bracha to be chal on. Rush to catch a plane, which by the way is describing my schedule of the last 40 hours. Rushing to the airport, running from meeting to meeting, and then finally when he gets home, or wherever he's staying, around Ma'ariv time, he sits down to learn something. 1 second, where's the Birchas Torah? You mean the Birchas Torah you made in the morning? You know how many have seikim you have? It's been 10, 12, 14 hours. That's the kasha that Tosfos asks in Brachas Daf Yud Beis, the Rosh, many of the Poskim. I'd like to share two answers with you, which are related heavily. A, ask yourselves how many questions a person at work and business has if he's running his life appropriately. Someone walks in to the building and suddenly has an Even Ezer Shaila of Shmiras Hanayim, of contact. And he thinks about it. 1 second, I have to be careful here. This is not a pleasant scene. I have to go through what I have to go through, but it's not pashut. He's thinking already that Shulchan Aruch has told him he has to avert his eyes. He can't shake hands. I'm going to raise something. I'm not so American by nature. I was born in America, but I'm not so American. I was raised by very European parents. I never heard my father call a married woman by her name, including his second cousin. Only Mrs. Never. Recently, someone in my shul told me the following. His parents, he lost his father in COVID, and his parents were two couples, his parents and friends, in their 90s. And the friend, his parents' friend, his mother is now alone, and they had a couple good friends that called her every day. The other couple, the woman died, passed away. The man is 100 years old. She's about 94. For 60, 70 years, he's calling her by her first name. He calls her up and says, her name is Fogel, Mrs. Fogel. He never called her Mrs. Fogel before. You know, I just got up from Shiva for my wife. I don't have a wife now. So from now on, I'll be calling you Mrs. Fogel and not by your first name. Imagine at 100 years old, this sense. I had my wife, there's a halacha ishta misham rasai, for hilchas yichud and so on. So this person understood, as long as I have a wife, I could even call her best friend by her first name. But she passed away. So now this 100-year-old man has a shmira on himself. I'm not calling somebody else's wife, even though she's an almana, by her first name anymore. I'm just mentioning it because there was once such a plateau. And that is a shmira that can serve us very, very well, because it creates a natural harchaka instead of a natural kiruv. Now, if a person, I thought I would mention that. But a person who's asking himself, how do I deal with this? Somebody delivers food for lunch, and all of a sudden they're not sure. The label got lost. 99% of the time, he always goes into Mendy's. But down the block, there's also Wendy's. So what does he do now? He's not sure. Yeah. Oh, it's pashut that he shouldn't, but he's thinking about it. What is he thinking about? He's thinking about Suffolk. He's thinking about Tarfus. He's thinking and learning. What time is Shkia today? Oh, so he's already thinking, when's Mincha? Says Tosfos. Say the Rishonim. What's Pshat? A Yid is all day in business and he's not thinking and learning? Of course he's thinking and learning. Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? But Mela, he doesn't have a hefsek from Birchas HaTorah. The Beis HaLevi has another answer. The Beis HaLevi has a fabulous answer in Parshas Mishpatim. He says like this: Ushmartem es mishmeres hakodesh. No, he says on a different passage. Ushmartem es mishmarti. He says Shmira works this way. He says there's a Gemara that says that a group sat down to enjoy a meal. A mesiba. Sheyashvu lishtos V'yatzu l'kras chasen b'kala. They heard the music of a chasen kala. You go out and you misameach. You even interrupt learning for l'kras chasen b'kala. So he walked out l'kras chasen b'kala. He's in the middle of a meal. After he greets the chasen kala, dances a little bit, he comes back. Does he make a new bracha or not? It's a sugya in Arvei Pesachim. Is it hesach hadas because he was meshana makom? Says the Gemara, it's a shini makom, and it's hesach hadas. B'med dvar mamurim, you know when it's talking about where shaloi hiniach sham zokin oichoyle. He didn't leave behind an elderly person or a weak, sickly person who will need his assistance. If he knows he left someone behind, so he was never Mesiach Das. I stepped outside, but I have to come back. I always know I have to come back. He's like tethered to that spot. So that's not called a Shinui Makom, and it's not a Hesach Hadas. And when he comes back, he doesn't have to make a new bracha, he can continue to eat. Halach in the Gemara. Says the Beis Halevi. What you mean to tell me is that if I left someone behind in a place that I once was, that I think about, and I feel he needs me and I need him. If Zvulun says, Yisachar needs me, and I need Yisachar, so then he falls into the geda of Hiniach Zakin Achoyla that he has to come back for. And we learned that that's not called a Shani Makom. And it's not called Hesach Hadas. So he says, everybody who goes to work, whose head is straight, knows I left the Beis HaMedrash, I davened Shachris. I went to yeshiva once. I belong to a Chabura. Like the Gemara says, B'nei Chabura sheyashvu lishtais. I belong somewhere. I belong to the Olam HaTorah. And I think about them, and they think about me. That's not called a Hesach Hadas. And therefore, says the Beis Halevi, he could learn without making a new bracha of Birchas HaTorah. No different than the bracha when it comes to a meal, because there's no Hesach Hadas. Rabbi say, this Yarchei Kallah is testimony. We're still in Chodesh Sivan. We just benched Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh. I heard from Hagoyin Reb Moshe Shapiro Zechat Tzadik Levracha that if you study carefully, and he showed us how, but I don't want to take up the time, and I don't have the ability to say over properly his detail. According to the Sefer HaYetzirah, the layout of the Degolim, according to the Shvatim, corresponds also to the months of the year. So the months, the Degolim, and the Shvatim all correspond. Do you know which is the Shevet for Chodesh Sivan? So I would instinctively say, intuitively, Yisachar, of course. And we're wrong. It's Zvulun. It's okay, I was also wrong. It's Zvulun. Says Reb Moshe Shapiro is a siman that Kabbalah HaTorah was given to Zvulun just like to Yisachar. As a matter of fact, it's his month. If I may add, the symbol for Chodesh Zvulun is Tu'umim, twins. And the Medrash explains, because somebody needs someone to dance in front of and to clap. You can't clap by yourself. Imagine you're in a room by yourself and you applaud yourself. You dance to yourself. You always dance in front of someone. Ketzad Merakin Lifnei HaKallah. So you need another person. The Torah was given to twins, to two people. Yisachar and Zvulun are not twins, but they act in a twinship. And it's an understood symbiotic relationship. I do for you, you do for me. Zvulun, Chodesh Sivan. Wonderful time to have a Yarchei Kallah. A wonderful time to have a Yarchei Kallah and a wonderful time to have this topic. I have a friend who just retired. We lived together in Borough Park. Some of you might know him. He moved to Lakewood. A beautiful Jew. Beautiful. His name is Reb Binyamin Lederer. I used to watch him for years. We lived down around the corner from each other, and frequently davened in the same minyan in the 18th Avenue Aguda in Borough Park. He was the first one in the shul, sat and learned with a chavrusa, had a little bag with him, an apple and I think something else, and went straight from the Aguda to the train to Manhattan. He was in the diamond business. He came back 5:30, 6 o'clock, didn't go home, went straight back to the Aguda to learn with his nephew b'chavrusa, and then he went home, and then came back again. And I understood that he found an hour during the workday to learn to. So someone quipped, Binyamin? He works bein hastarim. The fact is he had an 8-hour day. From 8:30, 9 o'clock till 5:30 in Manhattan on 47th Street. But his Torah was keva and his malacha was arai, because his work day was carved into his learning picture. It's a mentality, not only an activity. I once heard from Rav Volba. I was once zeicha to take a walk with him. Rav Shlomo Volba, the famous mashgiach, Ber Yaakov, told me he was talking about summer camps, and it relates to business as well. What we learn in yeshiva, we exercise outside of yeshiva. In yeshiva, sometimes the halacha is theoretical, but the practice is at work. I asked him, how do you like my mashal? You take a science course in a university, you get a few credits for the lectures, and you get a few credits for the labs. I'd say a biology course, so 3 credits for lecture, 3 credits for lab. The shiur is the lecture. Life is the lab. Now, where do I learn? Where am I honest? I learned the halachas of being honest. I learned Hilchas Geneva. Now, where do I apply it? Where's the lab? The Ben Torah in the workplace is that unique person. He's not mafsik. He's not mafsik. He's not mafsik because of the Beis HaLevi, and he's not mafsik because of the other Rishonim. He can't live his life in a vacuum of Torah. It's in the context of Torah. He could be a great surgeon. He could be a significant attorney. He could be an engineer. He could be a computer expert. He could be running businesses. But he's always asking himself questions. The definition of a Ben Torah is interesting. There are places in Shas that use the word Baal Torah. But there was a darshan once, a Hungarian Rav, who said a very good word. We use the word Ben Torah, you know why? He said in Yiddish, I'll say it the way I heard it, and then I'll translate. A Baal can get ma get. A Ben can nicht geben ka get. A Ben Torah is the first and most significant fact of life. Who you are a son of. These are my parents. It's an immutable, unchangeable fact of life. And it's your first fact of life. And, Rahman al-Islam, the last fact of life, because that's how a person's listed on his matzeva. You're a Ben. A Ben Torah is not somebody who experienced learning, somebody who has an occasional lecture that he attends. He listens on a he listens to a podcast, Torah anytime when he's in the mood. No, Taka Torah anytime, all time. But now I have to work. When you have that kind of mentality, so many of the shilas disappear because you recognize, I can't do this. It's not for me. It's just not for me. I'm a ben Torah, and I can't give a get. I'm a child for life. Tosfos and Makis says, with regard to a Rebbe and a father, as opposed to a Shliach Bezin, Shmoi shel harav, Shmoi shel ha'av, al zeh tomid. There are no hours for a father. There are no hours for a Rebbe. There are hours for a Shliach Bezin. It's negay to halacha, Makis Tav Ches. But that's the Metzias. So if I'm a ben, there are no hours. I'm a ben. And that ben Torah walks into the workplace as opposed to somebody who doesn't identify himself accordingly. It's a different day. It's a different mentality. He has his own pathway. He could be highly, highly successful, even dominant in his field. And there are many, many such people today. It's an incredible dar. There's a lot more to be said on the topic, but I was given, I think, Benzine said. So, thank you for indulging me, my lateness, but you could blame Delta. I got here as fast as I could, and I didn't even stop off where I'm supposed to stay. And my wife was kind enough to just go, and I'll try to find out where they are. But I didn't want to miss the share, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to share this with you. What does this have to do with Tosfos Shabbos? One vart. Is Tosfos Shabbos deraisa d'Rabbanan? Is machlokes. 3 shitas. Some Rishonim say, like the Azarua, that it's midiraisa. I won't hold you long. Don't worry. Just a minute. Some hold that it's midrabanan, and the Rambam doesn't hold of any Tosfos Shabbos or Tosfos Yantiv, only Tosfos Yom Kippurim and Tosfos Shemitah. So it's a famous machlokes. What is the mechanics of Tosfos Shabbos? What does it mean? I wave a magic wand and Friday is Shabbos. How could that be? So if it's the Rabbanon, okay, we'll work it out. The Raisa. So some of the Gedolei Olam say, and the Rav and the Shulchan Aruch paskins accordingly, that it's mitam neder. As a matter of fact, there was a woman who passed away there was a woman whose sister passed away Erev Shavuos, about 140 years ago. She was an elderly woman, very hard to sit shiva, and she got the notice. They went to the Netziv, and the Netziv said, it's mitam neder. If it's mitam neder, we're going to be mata the neder, mata her Kabbalah Shabbos. She'll sit down now for 5 minutes. Yantif will cut off the shiva. Shas Shuvas Meshiv Dava. But there is a remez in Rabbeinu Yoina, and I can't find it, but I heard it from an Adam Gadol once, that Shabbos is like Truma. Here I have Tevel. Which part is Truma? Whichever I designate. Is there Truma in the Tevel? Or I make Truma? Machlokes Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam and Yevamis. Can a Kohen eat Tevel? Some say no. Tevel is asa. Some say yes, because the whole problem with Tevel is that there's Truma mixed into the Chulin. So of course the Kohen could eat it, because he could eat Truma. Machlokes Rishonim. Let's take that last point of view. Shabbos is mixed into Chayil. It's a Chassidish concept. The Netzotzes of Shabbos in Chayil, and when you're Makabel Shabbos early, you gathered those Netzotzes and made it a contiguous block of time. And that's your Tosfos Shabbos, and it's Deraisa. If we could take that concept, time is ours, and there's Kedusha in Zman. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim The Svarna says you became a balabas with Yitzias Mitzrayim. You're not an Eved anymore. You're a balabas on your time. Till now, Paro was the balabas. Now you're the balabas. Make the right choice. We can create Tois v'Shabbos. We can, in the weekdays, create Kedusha Dika time. Can I end with a story? I have 2 more.
We have no other program.
No.
The Rav has a shir, he has to be out soon.
Yeah.
At Olson.
Okay. I heard this from Yarchei Kallah, Zech Tzaddik. He came to Los Angeles to raise money for Lakewood. And he was sitting by a very substantial Gevir. And when they finished the meeting, the Gevir said, how's the Rosh Yeshiva getting to the airport? He said, I'm calling a taxi. He said, I'll drive you. He says, you can't drive me. This Gevir, I'll explain in a second. He said, no, I can't be matriach you. He says, no, I want you. He says, but I heard something about you. The first 2-3 hours of the day, this Gevir had decided the following. I'm not going to learn on my own. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make Shabbos every day for 3 hours. No technology, no pen, no paper, no phone calls, nothing. So now I'm stuck at Shabbos. So what do you do on Shabbos if you have nothing to do? Nebuch. And that's how he learns every single day, 2-3 hours in his office. No malachas in the weekday for those 2-3 hours. So Reb Shnei said to him, you're in the middle of your 2-3 hours, you can't drive. So he said, I paskin for myself that driving the Lakewood Rosh Yeshiva to the airport is my learning for today that I can do at this hour. Reb Shnei was telling the story to show the chashivas of certain people. Rabbi say, Toisvis Shabbos in the weekdays, Kedushas Hazman. That man was more than a Ben Torah in the workplace. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in the workplace. We could all be that. If we understand the Asei Torascha Keva or Malachtecha Arai, if we understand we're balabatim over our own time, we could make Toisvis Kedusha if we apply the idea of the set over in the name of Rabbeinu Yonah. And if we walk into the workplace knowing, I just left the Beis Medrash, they're waiting for me, I'm waiting for them. That's why I can continue with my Birchas HaTorah. I think we'll conduct ourselves in Orach Chaim Yeridei Even Ezer Chashem Mishpat in an exemplary fashion, as this door is beginning to prove. So I wish you the greatest Hatzlacha. I hope my words were helpful, and I hope we'll be seeing each other again soon.
The Rav is not a role model. Literally a 6-hour delay.
I told them all.
I know that.
I sang all my praises.
I say Chaos Torah, we're seeing it in action. Nothing else now. You might see these shares, there's a share.
Yemen went from the train to the Iraq, and the rest to the plane to Europe.
Thank you so much.
I was in the bathroom. I missed the beginning about the grove.
In Kiki Ovis, on the Mishnah, I say, he just adds those words.
You know me, I live on 018.
Oh, wow.
Around the corner.
Oh.
I was going to my son, Kamal, I said, because we learned this morning the laws of Shlichus.
Yeah.
So then I was talking about, we meant to learn today Joseph Shabbat.
So
I got confused.
So maybe you'll learn it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's my point. I wasn't saying I'm late, I'm running away.
What's your last name?
Biton, Elinatan Biton.
Ah, very nice.
Rabbi, do you go to Ateret? I see Rabbi in Ateret 2 years ago.
I sometimes, once or twice a year, say a share there.
Did you ever learn with Ezra Irani years ago?
No. I just saw him last week. But
Ezra?
Yeah. My son is very friendly with him.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Uri Katz.
Shalom.
Camp Mamnabu, 1977.
Oh, really?
You remember when my soda can busted and sprayed all over all the head counselors at the front table? Yeah.
Oh, yes. What was the two brothers? Beautiful. It was worth coming just to hear this.
The guy has a save for 20 minutes every single morning.
Whoa!
It's called Kvul Kamat Samnatz. Think of all the Gemara.
And Ed, he shouldn't be parish. Called the parish.
That's geweldig.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
My working son-in-law was making a siyah, and his Chavisha said over this far.
It's beautiful.
The Rav will be surprised.
You're here for this method?
Yeah. Not the method, no. The Yarchei Kallah. I don't think I'm the demographic for the method mission, but no, but I'm here till Thursday. I'm here. Right. I'm thinking like the Chavrusa happens there. He's not going to be here all day tomorrow. I have to get permission from my wife. Because like, when I saw like, no, fuck, we just came back. So it's not going to work. She gave me permission. So now I think the road is going to Yarchei No, I'm all down, that's what I'm saying.
I would have dialed here for
You stay in the old city?
Yeah. Like, just like
Where'd you get it?
I took it out. One room.
Oh, you